Hi everyone, I'm Silvia Ospina and welcome to my drawing live sessions. Thanks for joining me on my first ever Instagram live. This week I decided to put out a drawing challenge inspired on the Inktober movement. If you don't know what Inktober is, it's basically a list of prompts of things to draw every day. For me, drawing every day is a little bit of a lot of pressure, so I decided to do a much simpler drawing challenge, which consists in one drawing prompt a week. And this week we're drawing houseplants. I'm drawing houseplants. This morning I sat down to draw and I decided to do an Instagram live. I had never done one in my life. It was quite nerve-wracking, I got to say, but when I got used to it, it felt super nice. People were asking questions and I just felt like I was drawing with someone else in my studio, which is not ever the case, and it felt really nice. In this video you will see me drawing and answering questions and talking about what I use, my creative process, some of my experience making repeating patterns and things like that. I decided to use color pencils and brush markers because I have spent way too much time in Procreate lately. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. This will motivate me to keep creating content. And that's it. Let's draw together. I usually like to get cuttings of plants from friends and put them on water bottles. So I'm going to draw a water bottle and leave the roots grow. So I'm testing the size. I don't know if I want to actually draw bigger plants or keep it easy and fun. What I love about the water bottles is that they're see-through, which means that I can observe once in a while how their roots are growing. It's really beautiful. Now I'm using a brush marker. I love mixing up materials, mixing tools, art tools, because why not? I'm gonna put some lavender. I love lavender. And I have a purple color in front of me, so why not? Do you see it properly? Do you see well? Or do you want me to put my camera on? For whoever just joined, I am basically doing my first Instagram live ever in my life. There's always a first time for everything. And I'm doing this to start a drawing challenge that I announced a few days ago on my Instagram. This is a way of motivating myself to make time for drawing and keep myself accountable, because I've announced it and I think some people are up for joining. It's gonna help me take the time to create assets that then I will be turning into fun repeating patterns. So I don't just want to start marketing my class, which by the way is going to be amazing. I also want to force myself to create time for my own creative pleasure and draw for the sake of drawing. So here I am. I used to do this a lot before working so much. As I said, I have been creating a lot of classes lately. And when I say lately, it means for the past 4 years. Before that, I was working as a freelancer in London. And a lot of my time was just spent creating patterns for other people or going into a lot of offices around London, running around, having fun, struggling as well, I'm not gonna lie. But I think that since I started creating classes, I don't allow myself to do this a lot. I feel like I have a lot of creative processes, if that's a word. It depends on the type of content that I'm making. Sometimes if I'm doing a mural, for example, and I have a specific brief, I would start usually in Procreate because it allows me to create like a specific sketch that then I can show to a client or test on a mock-up wall and just test really quickly if certain things work or certain colors combine well together, and it's quite practical. But then, for example, this is I'm going to turn this into a pattern, and that's partly why I'm creating this challenge. It's to, you know, to just like connect with my creativity in a free way without the stress of creating something specific for a client or following a specific brief. I think that's something that I want to do more of. In that case, this would be a creative process of mine. Just like observe what I have in my surroundings. In this case, I had a prompt which was houseplants, which it's limiting my creativity to houseplants. You know, it's much easier to have, like in Spanish you would say a limitante. So you would be, you know, like it's good to limit your creativity to something, and you can do this weekly. In this week, I'm going to draw houseplants. So now I know what to observe. I'm not just looking around being like, oh, I have a fan, a light, you know, a guitar. I'm just like, I'm looking around looking for houseplants. And if I go to a shop or a bar, I observe the plants. I can take photos with my phone of different pots. If I go to a shop and then I'm like, oh, that pot is nice. Maybe that can inspire my drawing prompt this week. And so your attention is put towards something specific instead of just like open to everything. And that helps me a lot. Sometimes I like to grab live references from Pinterest, for example, or take photos. But in this case, I have a lot of houseplants lying around. So this morning, I did the exercise of observing them in a mindful way, but like in a relaxed way, without forcing myself to memorize anything specific. Just observe them and then open my drawer, take all the materials, art materials that I can see or that I am drawn into in a natural way, put them on the table, make myself a tea because I can't keep drinking so much coffee every single day. I'm a bit of a coffee addict. And then put some relaxing music and start drawing. And here I am. So long answer, but it's nice to share. If you want me to talk about anything else, just let me know. Thanks. It's nice to know that someone's life actually paying attention. It makes such a difference. Do you create patterns for some companies? Right now, I'm not actually. I'm gonna be honest. I created, I don't know. I dare to say thousands of patterns in the past. I was living in London and I worked for about 7 years as a freelancer, creating patterns. So I did that a lot, and I burnt out quite badly, which wasn't fun. I got to admit. I was getting too many requests from clients for specific styles and briefs and trends and all that. And although it was a lot of fun and it taught me, like, I can't start speaking up, but like it taught me so much, I did experience a bit of a bad burnout. So I stopped. And now I'm getting back into creating patterns for fun, which is just amazing to have that kind of calling back. It's like creativity is calling me again. So at the moment, I'm not creating patterns for any company, but I am creating 4 pattern collections based on things that inspire me, not on the specific brief that a client is giving me. It's great to work for companies. It's incredibly valuable. Every brief will teach you something, will force you further. I did that a lot, and now I'm just like back to myself, back to what I want to create. And I'm also going to start printing patterns for myself because I love prints. I love dressing up with jackets that have patterns on them and using them like on my daily life. Especially when it comes to the winter, I feel like I have nothing with patterns and I just feel my life becomes more sad because of not having patterns on my life. So I'm gonna use some of these patterns. I might even create a pattern with these plants, and then that'd be fun, and then print some fabric to create like a tote bag or something. Giving you very long answers to your questions, but it's like once more, it's nice to share. It's kind of good keeping a limited color palette when you do a set of drawings, thinking on turning them into a pattern, which I would love to do with these plants. So I'm gonna try to stick to the colors that I chose in the first place. I think they were talking to me like, grab me, I have so many colors. Yeah, it's a good idea always to keep like a limited, I mean, it's not a, I wouldn't say it's a good idea today is a good idea. Sometimes it's just good to, to draw and paint without constraints. But I think that constraints are good when it comes to creativity. By using a limited color palette, you create like a stronger visual effect. So, I don't know what to do next. Okay, I'm gonna try not to overthink it. It's so easy to overthink. My mom gave me a plant that was growing, but then I left it in my terrace and it almost died because the sun in Barcelona is just like deadly, especially for plants. But I managed to save it and it's regrowing, so I'm going to have that in mind. I placed it on a ceramic pot so that it wouldn't get so hot. I received another question, and it was if I regularly use Illustrator or Photoshop. So I am a Photoshop person. And what I mean by that is that I do sometimes use Illustrator, but it's more like to making projects related to branding or to layouting, if that's even a word. Text and stuff like that, to making presentations, although I'm using Canva more and more. So I very rarely now use Illustrator, but I do love using Photoshop, and I use it a lot. Why? Because it allows me to keep the real look of my illustrations. As you can see, I love painting and drawing by hand. I like using a lot of techniques, and I really like designing with, let's say, watercolors that actually look like watercolor, or color pencils that still have that grain to them. If I pass these illustrations to vectors, then I would lose that. And although there are ways of kind of mimicking and keeping the texture to some extent, you do lose it. So Photoshop is a pixel-based program, and basically that it allows me to scan my illustrations, cut them out, and start designing with them. There are a few things that I do need to keep in mind when I do designing Photoshop, and it's like things like size, the resolution I'm working with. I can't just enlarge my illustrations to a massive format as I would do with Illustrator, but I'm happy to make those sacrifices for grain and gradients and real things. Do I draw digitally? Yes, I do draw digitally. I love using Procreate, and I got to be honest, I have been using it more and more over the past few years. When I used to work in my studio in London, although I loved being there, it was such a dream studio, I was very tied to it, and I felt like, if I wasn't in the studio, I just couldn't work. And it got a little bit tiring. I was being a freelancer for a reason. I wanted to be able to move around, work from a coffee shop once in a while. But since I was making so many patterns and they were dependent on my hand painted things, then I had to be there all the time. And so I started learning Procreate. I won an iPad and I started using Procreate. It took me a while to get used to drawing on glass, like on a screen. It's a bit weird, the feeling, but I was determined to making it work. And now I got to say that I'm using it a lot. It feels like an art portable studio that I can take anywhere with me. And it has all the techniques I need in one place, which is also great. I have to say that it's not just like an amazing illustration and painting app. I've used watercolors, acrylics, like you can mimic oils and stuff, but it's also an amazing program to design. So I'm making my patterns in there. I get to draw the assets by hand, mimicking any technique that I want. And the best part is that then I get to create the pattern straight in Procreate. And also I get to create my patterns from wherever I want. I have even made patterns on a plane. So, that's exactly what I was searching for when I was in London, to be able to work from anywhere, and Procreate has allowed that. Also, the iPad is not heavy, so I'm also carrying it everywhere without breaking my back. Okay, so my phone died. This video is going to end up in a minute, but if you're here, if you watched until this point, thank you so much. I have definitely enjoyed this live drawing session. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. It made the process more fun, and I felt like I was just talking to someone in my studio, which was very interesting. I really liked it. If you would like to participate on these drawing challenges in the future, follow me on Instagram, silviaospina.art. That's where I'm going to be publishing or announcing them. And if you liked this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for being here, and see you next time. Bye.